At UBIRCH, we are solving IoT security in a radical new way. So think of a classic setup where you have an IoT sensor that is measuring something, and a company, a utility company, for example, that sits here and wants to read that data. So measurement, data is flowing, and data is being read and used. The question is, how can this be secured? So typically what is being done is you apply channel security, so VPN or TLS solutions, which secure the data when it's flowing through that channel. And also device security is a technology that is being used, identity of the device, hacking prevention, stuff like that. At UBIRCH, we think a third thing should be added to the equation, which is securing the actual IoT data. So what we do is, whenever a sensor is measuring something, like temperature, for instance, a UBIRCH client is sitting as a piece of firmware on that sensor. It is able to create its own key pair and its cryptographic identity, and it can create a digital signature. So whenever this measurement is taking place, the UBIRCH client adds a piece of digital signature to it. And now when the data is flowing through the system, is arriving here, the receiving party is not only getting the reading but also the signature, and can do what we call an integrity check. So they can check whether the value is correct, whether the data is really coming from that sensor, and whether the order of the data packets is in the right shape, because the UBIRCH client can also link data together and prevent for hacking attacks with duplication or deletion of packets. Now the question is, why is this important? For a scenario like this, where you have one sensor and one receiving party, you might argue that securing the channel and the device is enough. But today's IoT scenarios are not looking like that. Instead, what we see is not one sensor, but hundreds of sensors on this side, owned by different parties, doing different stuff and creating measurements that are being used in the ecosystem. And also on the receiving side, we not see one receiver, but we see hundreds of receiving companies, like insurance companies, factories, analysts that are using the data for machine learning and so on. So the ecosystem is rather more complicated than in the past. And if you imagine you would have to maintain all the channels here in a secure way between those parties, this can get rather complicated and also unsecure, by the way. The beauty of our system is that we're sitting on every IoT sensor with our little piece of firmware, and we are creating the data at the source. So whenever an IoT data point is created, it's immediately secured. And wherever that data is flowing to, it can be verified and checked for authenticity, which is really beautiful, because it scales much better when the system is getting more complex and more parties are being added. Another thing that we're doing is we're linking all that data into a blockchain, which is a combination of sidechain and public blockchain. So whenever data is being measured, it's also being added to a blockchain double layer system, which effectively creates an immutable log for every IoT sensor, which allows completely new business models and a new level of trust for IoT data.